This is an NBC 10 News podcast.
Dropping bombs has never in our history caused regime change. The Americans aren't going to support something if they have no information about the scope, the threat, the strategy, and the course. We're looking at a situation which is essentially upending the international structure of relations.
Boy, we got a lot to talk about with Senator Jack Reed in studio with us on 10 News Conference.
Holding the powerful accountable from Washington, D.C. to right here in southern New England. This is 10 News Conference with Gene Valicenti.
Good morning, I'm Gene Valicenti. This is 10 News Conference. My guest today, Senator Jack Reed. Let's get right to it. Senator, I'm admiring your collection of neckties there.
Yes.
You have quite a good taste and style.
My wife does.
Right. Hey, by the way, Senator, how should we begin? News of the day, news last week, it changes. How about we just start with right now, the shaky ceasefire with Iran. What do you know? We're taping on Friday.
The ceasefire is tenuous, but I believe the ceasefire is the right move at this moment. I think it needs a lot of support by the administration and by other countries, and the hope is that we can stop the fighting and then reach a stable, peaceful solution. But there's so many variables. One is the Israelis, who have a major role here, their operations in Lebanon. One is the Strait of Hormuz. Will that be under the guidance and control of the Iranians or be international? Will there be tolls? There's a number of questions here, but to stop these ceasefire is really meaningful at the moment.
So stop it all. We've accomplished what we wanted to accomplish, and let's move forward. Now, it is shaky, and you mentioned the Israelis are going after Hezbollah in Lebanon. Let's just keep it simple as we follow this. Hezbollah is with the Iranians.
Simplicity and the Middle East are contradictory terms.
You make a good point. Israelis going after Hezbollah in Lebanon has the Iranians angry, and that could be a supposition for ending the ceasefire. Is that fair enough to say?
It is, and also, the Israelis have much more vital interest at stake because of the reach of the Iranian missiles, particularly. So they have to be part of this, hopefully, permanent solution. But the point is that what is difficult is that we have not achieved a significant change as the president suggested we were going to do. The Iranian government in place could be even more radical and more capable than the one that was replaced. We have a situation where their nuclear materials are still under their control. I doubt if they'll give them up. And what this fight has done is proven to the world and to the Iranians they have a very strategic asset in terms of controlling the Strait of Hormuz, and they could use that significantly in the future. So, the situation is unsettled. We really haven't set out or accomplished what the president was talking about.
All right, let me use the point you just made. It's dangerous to have the Iranians controlling the Strait of Hormuz. It's dangerous to let them have nuclear materials. We know what they're after, a nuclear bomb, says the president. And Secretary of State Rubio, he kind of outlined the reasons why we went. They were this close to having a nuclear bomb and maybe using it in a place like New York with a backpack. Let's listen to him and see if you buy the premise for starting this whole thing. Go ahead and play Secretary Rubio.
They've been offered every opportunity to have a nuclear program that allows them to have energy, not weapons, and every single time they have turned it down. But why the attack now? Well, what was Iran trying to do? Iran was trying to build a conventional shield, in essence, have so many missiles, have so many drones that no one could attack them, and they were well on their way. We were on the verge of an Iran that had so many missiles and so many drones that no one could do anything about their nuclear weapons program in the future. That was an intolerable risk.
We're in the 11th hour, Senator. We had to act. That's Secretary Rubio. He enjoys pretty good favorability on both sides of the aisle. He was your colleague for a long time. Is he right? Did we have to act?
We did not have to act. If you look at the intelligence which was provided to Secretary Rubio and the president, there was no imminent threat to the United States from Iran. That's clear, that's established. So without an imminent threat, you had the ability to begin negotiations, in fact, we attacked while we were nominally negotiating with the Iranians, which sent the signal that, our sincerity about negotiations is false. There was no imminent threat.
So that's it. You're at loggerheads. Rubio says there was. President says there was. Jack Reed says no, there wasn't.
No. Jack Reed doesn't say it. The United States intelligence agencies say that. The CIA analysts, all of the analysts, they told Rubio, they told the president, and they disregarded that.
All right.
And they disregarded it simply because I think the president was more influenced by some of his close advisors who just liked to blow things up, and the Israelis, who felt a much more significant threat. And rather than, I think, choosing a path, and we had time to do that, of serious negotiation, Kushner and Bishkov was sitting talking to the Iranians.
Yeah.
In the middle of those discussions, we started bombing the country.
Well, if I follow your line of thought, did the Israelis lie to Donald Trump about all of this and simply move to get, for their own selfish interests, get us to go after the Iranians?
I think they made the case that the Iranians were building up their missiles.
Okay.
But I think what they really suggested, and which was perhaps crucial to the president, was that this would be an easy operation. It would be like 2 days, we're going to decapitate the leadership, the country will just collapse, and it'll fall right in our arms. And I think the president disregarded his best advisors and believed that theory, which proved to be completely wrong.
So when the president said just a couple of days ago in his address to the nation, they're hobbled, they're on their knees, we've destroyed their navy, we've destroyed their aircraft, we've taken out the top 3 ayatollahs, there's like an 8-year-old running the place now.
Well, it's not an 8-year-old.
He's being untruthful?
He's being...
As they work their way down the line of succession.
No, that's not, I think, a depiction of the reality. And if you talk to the intelligence community and other communities, first of all, you have a leader now who has been part of the Revolutionary Guard since he was a young person. And he's also seen his father, his mother, and his wife killed by...
No, he's dead as far as we understand, isn't he? Hasn't Iran confirmed that the top Ayatollah's son is dead?
His son is in charge now.
So this is a grandson now?
There's not clarity. The initial leader was the son. Who survived the attack. There is evidence that he was wounded. But what has happened is that the Iranians' most radical Revolutionary Guard Corps people are now clearly running the country. They've entrenched themselves. They're probably more capable than their predecessors, and they now have a strategic asset. They've realized they do, which is the Strait of Hormuz.
Let's just go over this. It's important. The Supreme Ayatollah, when it started, he was killed immediately. His son was appointed. Never heard from him, never saw him. It's been widely reported that he is dead.
It might be reported, but I have not heard confirmation. But one of the reasons he's not seen a lot is that he doesn't want to be killed. So anyway, what we've seen is this government did not shatter and collapse as was suggested by advisors of the president. This government has actually been able to endure these significant attacks, and they continue to resist. And it's not surprising. A lot of history was forgotten by the president. For 8 years, the Iranians fought the Iraqis, and we were supporting the Iraqis, Saddam Hussein. Hundreds of thousands of casualties, et cetera, but they did not give up. There was finally, the Iraqis sort of threw their hands up and said, okay, there's a ceasefire, and there was a ceasefire. But you're talking about people who've seen, actually, the destruction of their leadership, of their country, and I think they feel that they have no option just to fight.
And threatened with the entire collapse of their civilization. In a famous quote, now hold it, I'll let you react to that, what Donald Trump said, and we'll see, what do you think? 25th Amendment ought to be invoked, as some of your colleagues do, and whether impeachment ought to be on the table. That's Senator Jack Reed coming up right after this break.
Great.
Thank you for turning to 10, your news leader. 10 News Conference with Gene Valicenti continues right now.
He has threatened a genocide against a nation. He has threatened to end a civilization. He has threatened to use nuclear weapons against a country that does not have nuclear weapons. All of these are impeachable offenses, and he must be brought to justice. The House and Senate should be brought back into session. There should be articles of impeachment brought against him by the Democrats in the House of Representatives.
What do you think, Senator Reid? That's your colleague, Ed Markey, from just across the swamp over here in Massachusetts.
The president's statement about destroying a civilization would be, if carried out, a war crime, I believe. Targeting civilian installations is against the rule of war, and he was suggesting that. I think what happened after that statement, even his own advisors were appalled and said, you can't do that, you can't do that. Thus, we have this ceasefire. But the president's behavior has crossed constitutional lines in so many different ways, not just with respect to this incident, but this war, basically. He's refused to, unlike George W. Bush, come to the Congress and ask for permission to conduct the operation. So he is conducting an unconstitutional war.
No, you gave me the opening. Obama didn't come to you for permission to do certain things, nor did Clinton, nor have other presidents.
Excuse me.
And by the way, the president can say, yes, I blustered, I threatened. They came to the table, didn't they? They were afraid of me.
They were not afraid of him. I think what was happening was the people in his cabinet and elsewhere said, this is outrageous. And I think many of my Republican colleagues had the same reaction, saying, that's a war crime. We cannot, the President of the United States cannot be talking about, let's commit war crimes. The issue of his status, the first thing we have to do...
His mental state is 25th Amendment.
Oh, the 25th Amendment, that, as you know, that has to be invoked by the cabinet and the vice president, et cetera. Then it has to come to Congress if the president refuses to go, which I believe he would, and then you need a 2/3 vote. That is a very, I think, far off sort of solution. I think also, too, you have to recognize that what we have to do now is get our Republican colleagues to recognize that this war is unauthorized, it has been detrimental to the United States, it is driving up inflation. Today's inflation number is 3.3%, the most in 2 years, more than at the end of the Biden administration. The American people are paying the cost of this war and his tariffs every day, and as a result, we have to address those problems immediately.
So you're not echoing Senator Markey. You're not calling for a cabinet meeting, 25th Amendment. You're not even saying impeachment. You're just saying, let's get together here.
First of all, as you well know, impeachment begins in the House of Representatives, and I think it can only be initiated after very careful review and based on facts. I do not think the Republican House of Representatives will conduct a careful review of the president and send us something based on facts.
You're not calling for it. Markey's calling for it.
No, I think I'm calling for something which is much more immediate, is that we have to ensure that this ceasefire translates into a stable peace agreement. Then we also have to go ahead and address the consequences of this war for the American people. How do we lower costs, not just in gas prices? Health insurance is going up dramatically because of the big, beautiful bill the president passed. We have costs in terms of housing. We have to address those for the American people. That's critical.
One more on the war, and then we'll go to other topics.
Yes, sir.
I know time is short. The Secretary General of NATO was in. He's kind of the Trump whisperer. He's the one who called him daddy. But you know, they asked him, is Donald Trump right in taking this action, starting the war with Iran? And he said basically, generally, yes. The world is safer because of this. This is Mark Rudd. Play it.
Is the world safer today than it was before the war was started?
Absolutely, because, and this is thanks to President Trump's leadership, degrading these capabilities is really very important for your and my safety here in the U.S., in Europe, in the Middle East.
Wow, Senator, I'm going to put him on your list. You have to straighten him out too.
No. I think he's in the situation of going into a meeting in which he was told the president very likely might say we are leaving NATO. And so I think his position is being very conciliatory, very respectful to the president. But in fact, the president's discussions about NATO is another example of how he's disrupted our national security. NATO has been the strongest element in the post-World War II world in terms of stopping Soviet and Russian aggression. And what the president constantly forgets, the only time NATO has invoked Article 5, coming to the aid of another country, was after 9/11. They lost, on a per capita basis, Denmark, for example, as many troops as we did. And the president's disdain for NATO, his discussions about, oh, I'm going to take Greenland, I'll seize it. Right. It's been an insult to the Europeans. And we are losing the strongest allies we have. And that is going to pay, that's going to cost us in the future dramatically.
Well, the president says it's costing. We pay 60% on NATO. We needed them to give our bases. They wouldn't even let us land their planes there. And Rutte, when asked about this, said yes. Some of the countries were disappointing. Play that, and then we'll go to a break. Senator, you listen.
Well, they were disappointed, but I will comment after Mr. Rutte.
Well, you know what? I think it's actually Senator Rubio talking.
It's not
Secretary Rubio.
It's Secretary
although
Rubio.
Rutte did say some of the countries were disappointed. Now we'll play it.
Senator Rubio would have said, this is really a mess. This is a disaster, just like he sponsored all of our foreign aid legislation, which the president has eliminated. So Senator Rubio and Secretary Rubio are two different people.
I get the distinction you're making. The Secretary General did say yes. France, Italy, England, they've been disappointing. I know that. This is Secretary Rubio saying this.
When we need their help, not their help, we're not asking them to conduct airstrikes. When we need them to allow us to use their military bases, their answer is no. Then why are we in NATO? You have to ask that question. Why do we have billions and billions of dollars, hundreds of billions of dollars, over the years, trillions of dollars, and all of these American forces stationed in the region? If we can only use, in our time of need, we're not going to be allowed to use those bases. So I think there's no doubt, unfortunately, after this conflict is concluded, we are going to have to re-examine that relationship. We're going to have to re-examine the value of NATO and that alliance for our country. Ultimately, that's a decision for the president to make.
Go ahead, Senator. You could react, and we'll go to break.
Well, that's definitely Secretary Rubio, not Senator Rubio, because he recognizes, we all do, that NATO has been a key partner in stabilizing the world since the end of World War II. And by the way, at the moment, if we don't have a strong NATO and strong support, we're not going to be able to help the Ukrainians. And what's going to happen? The Russians will get their way in Ukraine. They won't stop there. And we will have a situation in which Europe is influence is not under the control of the Russians. We are abandoning the Ukrainians right now as we talk about abandoning NATO. And again, this is an example of a foreign policy which ignores some of our most critical adversaries, Russia and China, and focused in on Venezuela and this attack on Iran. And I think we'd have much more standing with NATO to demand their help if we'd come to them and said, guess what? We're going to attack Iran. We want your help, cooperation, et cetera, and discuss about it. They were as shocked and surprised as the whole world.
Senator, take one more break. We'll be back with our final segment. Welcome back, Senator Jack Reed. One more segment. Senator, let's go to a bunch of lightning round here.
Okay.
We spent a lot on the war, but that's a top story in action news, as they say. Senator, the government shutdown still drags on. We're paying the TSA agents, and the Republicans point the finger at you. You point it right back on them. Just give me a quick 30 seconds where we stand as far as you're concerned.
30 seconds. The United States Senate passed legislation that would fund TSA and other elements by unanimous consent. Everyone. We sent it to the House, and the President also supported that, by the way. And a small fraction of the House, the Freedom Caucus, has stopped it. So if the blame is to be attributed to this moment, it's on those small group of Republicans in the House.
There's been some theater. We shouldn't get paid during the shutdown. Where do you stand on that, collecting a paycheck? And what about the perks you get going around the airport lines in Washington and other airports? You want to do away with that?
I don't use the perks. I go through the TSA, easy check, whatever they call it.
You go with the rest of us?
I go with the rest of it, yeah.
How about getting paid?
Getting paid, I think, if this dragged out much further, that's something that we should consider doing. That's why we're, in fairness, we want to see those TSA agents paid.
Right. Epstein, what's it about, Senator? I still don't know what it's about. In your view, what is Epstein all about?
I think what it is about is someone who terribly abused young women. And also, the question still outstanding is what relationship did significant American personalities have with him? President Trump, but not only President Trump, you've got many notable financiers, President Clinton, et cetera. And I don't think the victims have yet been satisfied in terms of finding out what happened, who did what, who tolerated his behavior. All of that has to be exposed. And Bondi, the Attorney General, has redacted so much material.
She's gone.
She's gone, I know, but Todd Blanche he is his former defense lawyer and someone who's there to just take care of President Trump.
But what I mean, Senator, is what is this about? Years and years of reporting. Was he an Israeli spy? Was he working for the CIA? How is it that we're talking so much about one man?
No.
Yesterday, the First Lady held a news conference at the White House to deny being friends with him, and the President has denied that there were anything more than he belonged to my club and I threw him out when he misbehaved.
The key is, let's get all of this material out. And the Department of Justice has not done that yet. Let's have independent observers look at the material. Of course, you're going to redact the names of victims, but look at all of it and say, we have come to the conclusion that here is the case. You need something to have probably a very bipartisan commission look at the whole thing and publish a report.
Senator, Bondi's gone, but I imagine if we asked her, she might say that I released millions of pages. All right, maybe it was disappointing, but the Democrats didn't release a thing under Joe Biden. He had 4 years.
No,
Where was the clamor?
There was no clamor, really, and I must say that. But this thing has become very significant, and the way you address it is to give people the facts and the information you have. And, the reluctance has been very severe. The irony of this is the only reason they've done this much is that Republicans in the House, like Marjorie Taylor Greene, insisted they do it, and they had to pass legislation to get it done.
All right, a couple of local issues that you're working on. Are we getting enough money to replace the bridge?
We have delivered $200 million, which was requested by the governor. It was an effort by myself and Senator Whitehouse, Congressman Magazine and Amo, and we got it done. We got it done with about 60 days, I believe.
About 1 minute left. Do you have a horse in the governor's race? Going to back the incumbent?
I have always respected the endorsement process of the Democratic Party. I'm going to seek to endorse it myself, and I'm focused on my race for re-election. And I'm going to let the Democratic Party make their choice.
Oh, so you're not going to say, well, it's the governor's the incumbent. He's very angry that it's being primaried, by the way. How close are you with Helena Foulkes? She's very close with Gina Raimondo. You were Gina's mentor. Is there a connection there?
There is a connection. Her father, Bernie Bonanno, was a lawyer at Edwards and Angel, one of the nicest gentlemen I've ever met. I really did know her growing up. She was much younger, and she's a very talented young lady.
Have you followed this mural story of late? Only just about less than a minute now.
I followed, yes.
You followed it. Should that artist have been told to take it down, or strongly suggested you ought to take that down?
Well, here's the thing: if it was a tribute to that wonderful young lady who was horrifically killed, it should be there without question. But if you look behind the scenes, this is a national situation where Elon Musk is trying not to honor that woman, but to promote his theory of immigration and everything else.
It did get political, you're right. Senator, we left a few topics off the table, but
thank you, Gene.
I think we got to the important stuff. Thanks for coming in. Good to
Always
see you
a
again.
pleasure.
Yes, it is. That's 10 News Conference. Have a great rest of your weekend.